microphone. So, my name is Robin Gabriel. I'm the Director of Public Programs here at the Museum of Industry, and I just want to start by saying thank you so much for all coming out and bearing with us during our little technical problems. I swear it worked this afternoon. However, we're going to go to Plan B tonight, and I know you all will be real happy with what we hear. So, anyway, I want to, like I said, welcome you to the Baltimore Museum of Industry. We're proudly celebrating our 30th anniversary this year. I know some of you in the audience will remember when we were brand new, so that's kind of exciting that we've been around for 30 years. I also wanted, before we get going with our program tonight, I just want to let you know about a few of our other programs that are coming up soon. On November 1st, we have a wonderful reception and panel discussion on the Lumbee Indians in Baltimore, and we currently have a temporary exhibit on the Lumbee Indians in Baltimore, just down the hall a little ways, which you can see for a few seconds probably after the program is over. So I encourage you to come back on Tuesday night for that. Also on December 8th, we have a beer tasting event where you could taste local beers. I'm seeing like comments. Sorry, for me or for him? Anyway, and then on December 10th, for those of you with little ones, we're having breakfast with Santa Claus. Hopefully you can come to that if you have little ones or grandchildren or whatever in your life. Anyway, so, hold on a second. Did you need to do something with the lights?
Illuminate Bob a little bit with the lamp there.
Yeah. You're going to get a halo. Okay, well, she's getting our lights going. I just want to say that we're thrilled this evening to welcome Robert Murch here to give a talk on the history of Ouija boards and their incredibly special special connection to Baltimore. Bob has been collecting and researching Ouija boards for over 20 years, and I was interested to hear him say earlier today that this is his first public presentation in Baltimore, even in 20 years of collecting and all, so that's really exciting. For those of you who are not familiar with Bob, he's considered the world's leading scholar and collector on the Ouija board. And,
my mom's proud.
As I'm saying, is he making funny faces over my shoulder? That's really not fair. Anyway, so we're really proud to have our very own authority on spirit boards and Ouija boards here at the museum tonight. And I'm just going to turn it over to him because I know you guys have been incredibly patient, and I appreciate that. Sorry about that.
Thank you guys very much, and again, I'm very sorry. I normally have this great presentation, but I actually do live, breathe, and eat this stuff, so I think we're going to kind of go about this a little different way. I'm going to tell you the story without you seeing anything. So hopefully I will paint a really great picture for you in your mind of all the wonderful things that are in my head. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to start to pass around two different Ouija boards, and one is the first Ouija board that was made here in Baltimore, and then there's another version that's made today, and you'll see how one is made of wood and the other one is made of cardboard and plastic. So you can see kind of how it's changed over 121 years, and again, the Ouija board is 121 years old. So.
Just hand it to Kathy.
It's okay. Pass you take one on one side and I'll take one over here too. We'll make this real interactive. Don't be afraid to touch it anymore. So this is going to be a bit of a kind of Ouija 101, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So I started basically collecting in 1993, 1992. Started my first website in 1997, which was kind of showing my collection of Ouija boards. I have met and interviewed many of the descendants of the people who were responsible, and we actually have, you'll find out, if you don't know who William Fold is, you will find out who he is tonight, and you will also know that there are some of the descendants here in the audience, so that's really nice. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. I also came up with a spirit board of my own called Cryptique, and I consult on books, TV shows, movies, and I have about 500 different talking boards in my collection. So up here is just a bunch of different ones that I thought might be interesting for you guys to see. What we're going to explore tonight is the perception of how the Ouija board changed. So today, how many people have played the Ouija board? Fascinating. Okay, now how many people have had a bad experience with a Ouija board? Well, this is great. How many people would play it any time? Like you'd pick it up tonight and play it if you could. Fantastic. Great, I'd love to see that. One of the major impacts on the Ouija board is the entertainment industry. So a lot of what you think and see and hear about the Ouija board is what you see in the movies. And that's pretty important because how the Ouija board started is not how it's seen today. Like for instance, there's over 131 movies, 66 television episodes, 200 songs, groups, and albums have something to do with the Ouija board. So pop culture has kind of taken the Ouija board and made it something totally different than it started. So, I always make this joke. The Ouija board was the first text messaging device, right? Before the iPhone, before the BlackBerry, you had the Ouija board. And, I usually compare them. And, so like the BlackBerry and the iPhone, basically like $99. You have to sign a 2-year plan. The Ouija board's fantastic, right? $19.99, unlimited calling plan to the other side. No overages, no roaming. What's interesting about the Ouija board is it's often people's first experience with the paranormal. So think about your other first experiences. And I mean, yes, think of all your first experiences. They don't often go as planned. They don't really kind of work out the way you think they did. But in most things, if something doesn't work out, you tend to try it again and do it until it works. And so with the Ouija board, though, you often have people who use it, and when they have a bad experience, they just kind of throw it out. And I often say to people, it's really interesting, people blame the Ouija board for something that happens. And it's like if we're having a telephone call, and we get into a fight, and we call each other names and say bad things to each other, and you hang it up. You don't take your phone and throw it out the window and say, I'm never going to have another one of these in my house again. But with the Ouija board, people do. And I think people often forget that what's really happening is whatever you're talking to, whatever you think you're talking to, whatever you are talking to, it's you and that other thing, your subconscious, or a spirit. And people like to, again, put that on the Ouija board. So I mentioned talking boards before, and this is kind of interesting. So what is a talking board? A talking board is the general term for all things, like Ouija board is one of them, spirit boards, witch boards. All of those are different names for the same thing, except Ouija is a trademark. So, like Kleenex, you really mean pass a tissue. Make a Xerox copy, you really mean make a photocopy. So today, Ouija has gotten so big and so kind of universal that we now use that as the general term. Other terms, like we said, are spirit boards and witch boards. And mystifying oracle is the other trademark that they use, so sometimes you will hear that as well. Now, how is Ouija pronounced? So it's really pronounced Ouija or Ouija. It was originally trademarked as Ouija, but people say when you play it, you Ouija. So it just became kind of how they did it. So basically, what does it mean? That's the question everyone asks me. What does Ouija mean? And basically, it doesn't mean anything. The story by the founders were that Elijah Bond and Charles Kenner were playing it with members of their family. They asked it what it wanted to be called, and it spelled out O-U-I-J-A. And today, that's kind of why they use it. William Fuld would later say that it was a combination of the words we and ya put together. But William Fuld was a master marketer, so he would change the stories when they kind of got old and stale. So when he thought there was a better story, he would tell it. So how does the Ouija board work? And I think that's a big question. How many people here believe when you use a Ouija board, you're contacting the other side? It's their spirits that you can contact. And how many people think it's your subconscious? And how many people think it's just your friend bullshitting? I think I've seen all three of those things, actually. I think, like everything, nothing works the same for everybody. And those are basically a couple of trains of thoughts on this. It's either motor response or automatism, that your hand wants to move, you want this to work, and when you ask it a question, it starts to answer. And it's basically a trick that your brain is playing on you. That's what psychologists will tell you. Now you'll have spiritualists or people who believe in the paranormal, that it's a demon, it's a spirit, it's something other than yourself. And then you have psychics now who are basically saying that it's actually a form of telepathy, that when you sit down and play it, the Ouija board is opening up this portal that is a connection between the two people. So they're asking you a question about him, and you don't know this answer, but somehow you're getting that from him. So those are basically the 3 trains of thought. Basically, when is the Ouija board popular? Because it's 121 years old. There are a lot of things out there that people use to entertain themselves or talk to spirits that have not lasted. But this has. So this is special. Something's different about this. Basically, it's cyclical. So times of war and times of economic depression, the Ouija board gets really big. So super popular right now, right? You see a lot of movies, Paranormal Activity, all 3, I think. I haven't seen the 3rd one. Has anyone seen the 3rd one here? Okay, well, I guess it didn't do very well. But it's used quite a bit. Now, if we draw a line in the sand as to when spiritualism started in the United States, we would basically say that starts with the Fox sisters. They basically started modern spiritualism, and that's in 1848. And basically, it's a story of 3 girls that claimed to contact a spirit by rapping. And they would hear these, they would ask questions, and they would get knocks back. And that would work on the alphabet. And that started this huge craze. Now, later on, they would recant and say that it was a hoax. But the genie was out of the bottle. And so once that happened, all kinds of things started. Here's an interesting quote that I like to say. This was a book from the 1850s called Table Turning and Table Talking. In 1986, Witchboard came out. Now, originally they wanted to call it Ouija. Parker Brothers said that they would let them. They reneged at the end. So they called it Witchboard. Now, what Kevin Tenney did as the writer and director was fascinating. He took every story, every urban legend, everything that wasn't true, and strung it together and rewrote the entire history. So I've worked for 20 years to undo what he did in that thing, but the movie was fantastic. It really was. But he basically said, I read in some old encyclopedia that Ouija boards were used in the time of Pythagoras, 3000 BC. It's just, there's no proof. It was an American invention as far as we know. That could change tomorrow, but in 20 years of really looking, it's not there. So he did a fascinating thing in that movie. If anyone saw it, does anyone remember Tawny Katane? Like White Snake? Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, I know that gentleman did. Yeah, she did a great video on a car, on the hood of a car. Okay, so the Ouija board, basically, in 1990, Parker Brothers did something that they had a hard time with, actually, according to the records. They made, up until then, it was being made on paper and masonite. And all their games had moved on to paper on cardboard, because it was cheaper. Well, the CEO and the head of marketing, and the CFO all met in their office, and the CEO said, look, we can't do this if it's not going to work. We need to make sure that the Ouija board is still going to work on cardboard. So according to the story of the people who were there, they sat down in his office, and they played the Ouija board. And it worked. And guess what? It's on cardboard. So that's what they did. Another great movie for people that's really funny if you ever want to watch it, Repossessed. Has a great spirit board scene in it. You know, was there anyone in here who just did not want to touch the Ouija board as it went around? Like they're going to say it, right? There are a lot of people who just don't even want to touch it. They really believe that just being near it. I'm filming a Ouija documentary kind of on the history of the Ouija board and what it means today. And we talked to a lot of people and asked them, what do you think of the Ouija board? We talked to a lot of people who will tell us it's opening a doorway you can't close. Other people are like, it's just a game. And I'll never forget, Kathy Fold did an interview with Fox News, and they asked her if the Ouija board was something to be scared of. And her answer was, it depends if you're scared of cardboard and plastic. I have over 500 of these boards in my house. Nothing bad has ever happened. And if it did, I'd sell tickets, and y'all be there. I wanted to see what else. It just isn't there. And it's not to say that bad things don't happen, but one of the things I did in my research was I called up the top 10 medical facilities and the top 10 psychological facilities in the United States, and I asked them all the same question. how many cases in the past 1, 5, 10, 25, 50, 100 years have had to do with a patient that used a Ouija board or was Ouija injured related? Now, that's exactly what they did. Because again, I never take no for an answer. And I call back, and finally, I got answers from all of them. Do you know how many cases? 0. 0 have been recorded. Now, then people will say, critics will say, well, you didn't go to the church. I did try to go to the Vatican. They never released those numbers. But think about it. Even in the exorcism, if you've got a kid, and they start playing around, and they're starting to spit up split pea soup, and
Their head's spinning around.
where do you go? You go to the doctor first. I mean, you just do. You don't say,
Oh, this is totally it's a demon. We're going straight to the church. I think you go to the doctor, and maybe doctors don't record this information. I would think, I could tell you something, if I was a doctor, someone came in here and told me there was a Ouija injury, I would write that in the notes. Just wait. So again, what's happening is there are 2 lives to the Ouija board. There are what we hear, what we think, and then there's what people believe, these urban legends, which, by the way, we call Ouija-stitious, of course. It's creepy. Today, many boards are made. Pop culture boards, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Buffy the Vampire Slayer never used a Ouija board. There was never a Ouija board in any of the entire seasons. But when they decided they could make money for the people who were doing it, they made a Buffy the Vampire Ouija board. Fantastic. Hellboy did it. Emily did it. And recently, Hasbro, for Ozzy Osbourne's last Scream tour,